We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Hello. Welcome to Open Wide for Some Soccer. My name is Seth Vertelny. Alongside me this evening, Paulo Maurer, Thomas Floyd. Guys, we're a little late due to technical difficulties, but CVS saved the day.
Wait, I thought the episode was scheduled for 8:24.
Yeah, it's like an MLS kickoff. You know,
Exactly.
I tell you it's 8 p.m. kickoff, and then you're sitting around watching Brian Dunseth for 23 minutes or something.
I feel like we might get some more listeners, actually, if we did that little gambit. Like said we were starting at
Right.
8 and actually started at 8:24.
But we would need a pregame show. Who should be our pre-podcast?
I mean, our pregame show could be just us watching Jeopardy
That is true. We do tend to do that right
Yeah.
before episodes.
and play Jeopardy as well,
Uh,
which I usually win.
That's some better than others.
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been about a month. This thing's turned into a monthly podcast.
Well, we were doing pretty well for a while there, and then circumstances conspired to turn us back into a monthly podcast.
Work, technology, a number of things.
Yeah, I mean, we have a new soundboard tonight, and we thought that we weren't going to be able to do the show at all because said soundboard was not working, but yours truly made a clutch CVS run and secured the cable, which...
CBS has surprisingly elaborate selection of technical products.
Yeah, I had no idea.
The shitheads at Guitar Center dicked me over on this mixer, led me down the wrong path. It'd been a while since I was in a Guitar Center. I forgot the simple joys of walking in and seeing a 14-year-old just shredding on a Fender Stratocaster in the corner. You know, it's a joyous place.
I like going in there and playing the drums, and then,
I bet you do.
Once they realize that you don't know how to play drums, they sort of frown upon you doing that.
It's only one way to learn. As always, guys, if you want to call in tonight, 708-LT-OWFSS, whatever you want to talk about, MLS, U.S. national team, a little NWSL maybe, even with the final coming up.
I can give you a little breakdown, sort of. I'm going down to...
Thomas just got full of joy when I said that.
I'm going
home,
to Spirit training tomorrow.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're going to Houston.
Oh, I am not going to Houston. Sorry.
our hometown
Impressive.
11 made the final.
And if the old format were still in place, it would be here. But instead, we have a match between the Washington Spirit and Western New York Clash in Houston, where I'm sure it will draw a massive crowd.
I'm sure it'll be reminiscent of the MLS Cup, which was held in Toronto
Right.
between Colorado and, who was it?
FC Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be reminiscent of a usual Houston Dynamo home game.
Their crowd was terrible against NYCFC. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really disappointing. I mean, yeah, Houston is not in the playoff hunt anymore, but come on, David Villa, Andrea Pirlo in town. You can't even fill the stadium halfway.
Tommy McNamara?
Tommy Mac's in town.
I think there's some parallels there to, and we're not going to get into this, but I think what's happened to BBVA could easily happen to Buzzard Point if they don't put an attractive product on the field. It just goes to show that a new stadium isn't everything.
Yeah, it's funny with the Houston Stadium. I went down there and I didn't realize how centrally located that stadium is. It's right by the Astros Stadium, literally 2 blocks from it. It's pretty quick from downtown. There's I don't know, there's a light rail type thing in Houston that stops right at the stadium. So the fact that they're not drawing is a little disappointing considering how nice a facility that is and how centrally located
It's a
it is.
mystery,
Guys,
too.
I want to get right into something here. It's a voicemail we got on our inbox a few weeks ago. It concerns. Should I just play it, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think we need
How do you prep for
we
this?
need to emphasize that we don't know who this particular goalkeeper is.
Just draw your own conclusions. Let me fire this up here. This is John from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Great town. Just kidding. All right, here we go.
Hey, Open Wide for Some Soccer. This is John in D.C. Tweeted you guys about an interesting situation that may have come up this past weekend. So say your girlfriend is traveling back on a train, and a certain starting goalkeeper is also on that train, returning with his team after a rivalry match. Maybe starts hitting her up and maybe drops some digits on her, but at the same time often offers season tickets. Would you consider that a win? I'm thinking that I need to consider that a win. Let me know. Thanks.
Is that a win? Well, first of all, your girlfriend slept with Bill Hamid.
I was going to say, I think it's only a win if your girlfriend did not use that number.
I mean, I think you have to take the season tickets, right?
What if you don't like the girl that much, so you kind of just let her go and get the season tickets out of it?
Well, how do you determine who gets the season tickets?
No, you do both. I mean, it's like being
feel
at a
like-
bar. I mean, plenty of women and or men have let somebody buy a drink for them and then just walked away. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Can you tell us happens to me a lot? I'm not sure what to say about that.
I'm just disappointed that you do that to so many people, Pablo.
I know. Just breaking hearts all over the place. What do you guys want to talk about? You talk about some DC United.
I mean, we got to get into our other hometown 11, which could very well be joining the Spirit as local teams making the finals of their respective leagues.
Both of them are playing some pretty entertaining, a good team brand of soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, DC United's strung together more than 2 or 3 passes for the first time since 2007.
I don't know if that statistic's accurate, but DC United, this is amazing to me how drastically their entire style and vibe has changed in the last couple of months. How they went from being a team that plays gritty soccer, the Benny ball cliche, just try to be kind of a cagey team to play against and get some results playing direct. They retool the roster, make some trades, change the formation, get the most out of Luciano Acosta, and then all of a sudden they are scoring goals at a rate that puts them right at the top of MLS over the last couple months, and the change is just so drastic. I can't remember seeing anything like that in MLS. I mean, we saw it last year with the Timbers, but even that they just surged much later. They surged over the last 6 games of the season. This is a DC United team that just right around the mid-season point reinvented themselves and have been putting together a entertaining product consistently for a couple months now.
Yeah, I think they're it's a thing where you look at their 11 and really what's there not to like at this point. They have a number of skillful center mids. They will, you'd assume, for the playoffs if Sarvis makes it back as well. You've got Costa finally in that playmaking role. You got Mullins, who is a borderline revelation at this point, and then you have a U.S. national team center back, somebody who should be a U.S. national team goalie, and then sort of like the icing on the cake are the overlapping fullbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a team that's sort of built to play attractive soccer for once.
And a lot of the role players.
And the wingers. Sam and Nyarko, for my
and
money,
Nagel.
They
have 3 wingers who are, starting caliber players, and I think are not only that, above average MLS wingers, guys who would be starting for almost every other team in the league, and they have a real competition right now. I mean, Lamar Nagel, I actually didn't check. As of the last game, is he now their leading scorer again?
He is.
And he is a guy who probably isn't in the starting 11 on a given day because Nyarko and Sam are so consistent.
I mean, you can hear Ben almost saying right now, well, he's a great option to have off the bench, and, we got a lot of different looks and blah, blah, blah,
Well, yeah, the thing with Nagel is acquiring Lloyd Sam sort of made Nagel more of a sub. He was starting more before Sam was around, and Nagel as a sub recently has been really thriving. I mean, he had 3 goals and 1 assist in like his last 4 or 5 appearances off the bench, which is like a total of 1 game.
Yep.
But then he started this weekend and scored 2 goals. So maybe Nagel's just in a good run of form, whether he's coming off the bench or starting.
I mean, not the first DC United player in the past few years to thrive off the bench, and Ben keeps him there. If you think about Branko Boskovic, Hamdi Salihi, lots of players You know,
Andrea Mancini.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, Sam
Long
Long.
tan.
And a lot of these other players, Nick DeLeon stepping in at right back and started all 3 matches in a short week at a position he had never started an MLS game at before entering this past week, and was pretty much rock solid. I mean, he got forward well, looked at home. Especially in the first game, there were some nervous moments. He looked to be a little too risky on the ball, but he started to figure things out, and now he's looking like a very viable option at right back. And it's a small sample size, but you're at a point where you almost wonder, is this the reinvention that he needs? He's been a player who DC United have been trying to figure out how to get the most out of him. Do I play him on the left? Do I play him on the right? Do I play him in the middle? And now maybe right back is the role for him.
Yeah,
I got a 6 Degrees of Rochester Rhinos request for you. Do you want us to handle it now?
Okay.
I don't even know how to say the person's name. But all right, let me pull this on up. Let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. Vasileios Apostopoulos.
Is that a player who's on the Rhinos?
who is that?
I don't know.
There's a player on the Rhinos who has a long Greek last name who's a center back. I don't know if that's...
well, that would be a very bad 6 Degrees of Rochester Rhinos clue.
He is on the Rochester Rhinos.
Nailed it.
I think maybe he was trying to expose you as not knowing the current Rochester Rhinos lineup.
He was a starter at center back for their championship team last year, alongside former Colorado Rapids great Grant.
That's
Vanda
great, Thomas.
Castillo.
That's great, Thomas. You still referred to him as some guy with a really long Greek last name.
Well,
so don't get too cocky here. I shouldn't even give you the win. You know.
I was a little afraid I would terribly mispronounce it.
I think I got it right. I don't know.
I actually kind of like that. That was tricky, like a little bit of a trick question there.
Yeah.
Also, I guess while we're on the topic, you guys missed a really awesome.
I know. I was basically promoting it on Twitter, but then I saw the video. So
it was. So,
I'll let Thomas. You were there.
Yes. So
live coverage from Rochester.
Yeah.
So the body of water he was kicking the ball over.
Hold on, Thomas. I think you need to back up.
Yeah.
And explain.
Yeah.
What happened?
Okay. So Rochester Rhinos backup goalkeeper.
What? He's not even the starter?
No, he's played some games. Adam Grimless, who also is the boyfriend of Washington Spirit center back Shalina Zadorsky. Trivia.
God, autism is just all right.
He did a little promotional stunt ahead of the Rhinos playoff opener, which they won in the USL quarterfinals. On Friday, he kicked a ball over the I think it's the Genesee Riverway in Rochester.
Isn't it Genesee?
Genesee.
I mean, the beer is called Genesee.
Yes, that's It was right at. It was right outside a brew house.
I know that. Let's see.
So
yeah. I knew this from somewhere. Arthur John Shawcross, June 6th, 1945, November 10th, 2008, was an American serial killer, also known as the Genesee River Killer, in Rochester, New York.
Jess actually, so my girlfriend who is from Rochester, she was telling me about this because they made a TV movie out of it, and she was trying to figure out if that could help me in 6 Degrees of Rochester Rhinos.
Oh my God. I'm going to go ahead and admit the Genesee River as a new link for you. Like, if you can travel down the Genesee to other cities, you know.
All right, I'll look into that.
So he kicked the ball.
But, so here's the thing.
The video looks really anticlimactic. It looked like he kicked it over like a tributary or something.
So, basically, we get there, and there's just a bridge over this riverway, and there's an island in the middle of the riverway.
Yeah,
and so we're looking at it and we're like, all right, one of two things is going to happen. Like, he could try to kick it over the whole riverway, which is just not possible. It's too far. Or is he just going to kick it onto the island that's in the middle of the riverway? And that's what he did. And it seemed like...
How is that over the river? That's
over
half the river.
I think bring your grievances to the Rochester Rhinos for this one.
One observation.
You know what? I'm going to tweet at them all day tomorrow in a really hostile way.
So one observation I had from this video, and we'll have to put it on the Open Wide for Some Soccer account, but he kicked the ball and sort of ran into this railing above this cliff, and his momentum, I swear
Easily
to God,
could have
like,
carried him over.
nearly
Yeah.
took him over.
Like
the
we
road.
almost lost
like,
a USL player.
Like
you know,
he came very close to dying.
Yeah.
That actually was the second out of 3 kicks.
Oh.
He did a first one from the other side. Still, it was even less impressive than the first one. I have video of it. I'll
Also,
show
you're
you.
kicking from a bridge. I mean,
Yeah.
you're elevated.
Yeah.
I thought he
Exactly.
was just going to set the ball down on the shore and just punt it.
Yeah,
you know.
and then he did another one from the rooftop of the like brew pub that was next
Showing
door.
off at that
and,
point.
And the thing about it that fascinated me was there was no plan whatsoever to retrieve the ball.
I know.
Like
I saw it go into the woods and was like, no one's getting that.
yeah, or if he had just kicked it into the river, like, all right, guess we're polluting that river. Like,
yeah.
there was no contingency in place. Yeah.
Guys, I'm gonna bring this back to DC United
Yeah,
with
go ahead.
I got a little
From the
stat.
Genesee to the Anacostia.
I got a couple stats.
They
for
are
ya.
of similar pollution levels.
Yeah. So prior to last weekend, DC United had not won consecutive games all season.
31 games. That
31
streak.
games.
or lost consecutive games, which also was
Painfully
fascinating.
average.
Wow,
Painfully
that's
average.
interesting. I didn't realize that part
That's
of it, but
sarcastic, even though it wasn't.
True. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting, Thomas.
That sounded like sarcasm, but it wasn't. So, okay, they beat Orlando 4-1. Orlando is a bit of a shit show right now. They followed that up by beating Columbus 3-0. Okay, now we've got our first win streak of the year. Getting some momentum. That's nice. But then this last weekend, winning 2-1 at Toronto, the top team in the East before last weekend, now you're really on to something,
Overall,
right?
I thought there was some good stuff.
Yeah.
Also, in comparison to their earlier trip to Toronto this season, which was, I believe, a 4-1 loss, I have concluded that
Javinko hat
Toronto is better with Javinko, and that DC United is better with Bill Hamid. Those are my hot takes.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, one more stat here. Before July 20th, DC United had 18 goals scored in 19 matches.
Oh, really?
Since July 20th, DC United has scored 30 goals in 13 matches.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys know what happened on July 20th?
Nope.
Is that when they traded for Patrick Mullins?
No, but yeah, Patrick Mullins.
It
Yeah.
is indeed.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. I will say, as much of a role as Mullins has played in this turnaround, and he's been huge, I still think the biggest factor actually was just in general getting the right players and the right formation for Acosta. Like, he has 10 assists. He's quietly among the league leaders now. Can you imagine where those numbers would be if he had been playing in this system that enhances his abilities so much, if he'd been playing in that formation and
Can you
with
imagine
that
if
personnel all year?
Can you imagine if he was like a decently lethal finisher? I mean, I'm not even kidding.
Well-
I feel like I made a joke on Twitter during the game. I say he's like Diet Jovinko, right? Because he's like, it still does the job, but doesn't have that smooth finish that the full-bodied product does.
I'll give you a little comparison.
Hey, great joke, Pablo. It was a great joke. It was really funny.
I thought it was
You have high standards.
It was good because it worked on a number of levels.
Yeah. See? People like me.
Pablo, I've become so used to your humor that I just accept it and take it in flow.
Yeah,
To compare, Mauro Diaz actually has fewer goals from the run of play this year as Acosta, and they have almost the same number of assists. I think Diaz has 1 or 2 more. Like, there's talk. People bring up Mauro Diaz's name in the MVP conversation. I mean,
do they?
He's the
like people in Dallas's stadium. You mean, or like you mean like people in Mauro Diaz's family household?
He is the consensus best player on the Supporters Shield, front runner, soon to be winner, and that usually gets you some buzz.
Yeah.
But Luciano Acosta is actually, putting up comparable numbers this season, and I think it's been kind of a quiet thing because he's really come on strong over the last couple months, and people maybe haven't quite realized how strong a season he's actually put together.
Well, we talked about this a few shows back, how DC United was going to have a decision to make at the end of the year, whether to try to purchase Acosta outright. And we said at the time that his play over the next couple months towards the end of the season was really going to determine whether United would be willing to shell out whatever it took to get him. And I feel like now they're at the point where they sort of have to pay to
Which
sign
means
him
they
full-time.
won't.
Correct.
Which means they won't. I mean, what you're saying is he's driving his market value up, and DC United not exactly known for paying, an insane amount of money for players in general.
Well,
so my worry is that Boca is just like, no, I mean, we'll take him back, or
Is it maybe DC United has a lot of extra money because one of their co-owners, his other investment, they just hired a really cheap head coach.
Yeah, exactly. Bob Bradley working for the English equivalent of food stamps, I guess.
Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. So back to Mullins. We have now had the opportunity to see Mullins for a couple months now and put together a run of games, and he's been doing really, really well. 7 goals in 12 games since he's come to DC United. And I think that we started to get a picture of what kind of a player he is and what kind of a player he could be, because up until this point, he had never really been a consistent starter in MLS. And so it got us thinking, what is Mullins' ceiling? How good can he be? He's still only 24, so not exactly young, but still young enough where he can improve. But I'm curious what you guys think. Is this a potential national team player? Is this just a potential solid MLS fringe national team guy? Like, how good can Mullins be?
Well, I want to clarify one thing quickly, and that's that I talked to Patrick Mullins 3 weeks ago about his Irish national team eligibility, and he says he doesn't know if he's eligible for the Irish national team. Anyways, moving on.
Okay.
Seth, you and I
So
talked
he's
about
no
him.
Lamar Nagel.
Exactly, yeah. Or Tommy Mack.
Lamar Nagel should be starting for Ireland right now.
So should Tommy Mack, and I fear that it's going to happen. Anyways,
And he'll win them a World Cup.
yeah. Seth, you and I talked about Mullins as sort of a Wando type of striker, and we were sort of laughing about it, because he has the same, his movement's similar, he scores similar goals, kind of a poacher, but, we're laughing about it and sort of making fun of it, but I mean, Chris Wondolowski scores 15, 20 goals a year.
He is one of the greatest players of all time in MLS.
I agree.
And
yeah.
And that's
God, it pains me to say that. Wait,
yeah, I would make Wando as the comparison for Mullins because they both have this incredible ability to put themselves in the right spots, to work hard, to make a lot of runs that you don't even see, especially on TV. But 1 in 5 of those works out with them getting on the end of a chance. And the thing is, I'd say neither of them is an incredible finisher. You will see Mullins miss some opportunities. You will see Wando miss some opportunities. But when you get yourself enough chances, you're going to score a lot of goals.
yeah, and they also both have the capability to occasionally be incredible finishers.
Yes,
you see both of them
absolutely.
score sensational goals. I think we draw this out to his logical conclusion that in Qatar, we're going to see Patrick Mullins hit a ball 20 feet over the bar from 8 yards out.
In the final against Qatar.
Exactly.
Which
the
will,
Qatar have
which will
players
have,
like
at that
Wayne
point-
Rooney or something.
Yeah, well, at that point, they will have nationalized the entire Brazil national
I was about
team.
to
Yeah.
say Brazil.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think when you look at a comparison with Wando, to go in a little bit more of a negative direction, I think also Mullins,
As we often do
yeah,
with
I
Wando.
mean, I think Mullins, maybe why he'll never be like a top caliber national team player is he's got some physical limitations, which Wando also has. He's not known for his speed. Not super good in the air, although he gets in good spots. These are the things that maybe have kept him from getting a lot of starts in his MLS career.
And
up to
from
this point.
Patrick-
drawing interest from Europe and
Yeah,
that kind
right.
of thing.
Patrick Mullins is a nice guy, but he'll never be as nice as Chris Wondolowski. Are we all in agreement?
Wando is the nicest guy in
Yeah,
MLS.
that's exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Compared to him, Mullins is the worst. Not really. He's a great guy. Went to Maryland.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see certainly his development. We've got a couple of U.S. national team games coming up. We decided not to really get into the roster because there's not really that much interesting to talk about. But
I have a lot of thoughts about Lyndon Gooch getting his first call up.
I have an entire breakdown here of Cuba's lineup, and you're
Is Osvaldo Alonso starting?
Anyways, moving
All
on.
right, back on
Well,
track.
no, I mean, there's not a whole lot outside of Lyndon Gooch and the Cuba breakdown to discuss until the games start. But I think from a United standpoint, certainly an interesting omission for at least the Cuba game, because I think there's a chance that he might get called up for New Zealand because it's taking place at RFK. Bill Hamid is behind on this roster. There's no Howard, there's no Ramondo, there's no Guzan, but Hamid did not get a call up
On a roster specifically geared towards younger keepers.
Right. So
Yes.
you have David Bingham, you have William Yarborough, and you have Ethan Horvath as the three goalkeepers, which would seem to indicate that Hamid is now down somewhere around the 6 to 7 to 8 mark on the depth chart.
Right.
I mean, what do we make of that?
The depth
Well,
chart.
The depth chart. Now
He's
on
gone from the
depth-
depth chart to the death chart, if you
Now
will.
he's on the depth chart.
I'm going to start by fixating on the particular goalkeepers who did get the call. I mean, Ethan Horvath, I've only seen him play really a few games with the U23s. He looks pretty good. He looks like a strong prospect. David Bingham, watch game in, game out in MLS. He is a above average MLS goalkeeper, but he does not make the type of game saving stops that Hamid does. Hamid regularly saves United points with unbelievable plays. David Bingham is just kind of your consistent, decent MLS goalkeeper. And then Yarbrough is actually a couple years older than Hamid. He's a guy who has at times recently struggled to keep a starting job in Liga MX. He had a howler or two that really derailed him a season back, and he's a guy who I'm a little curious how he in particular fits into the picture being ahead of Hamid. So those guys, when you watch Hamid with DC United and see the saves he's making and even some of the mistakes he's made over the last month or so, somewhat uncharacteristic, those have been vastly canceled out by the number of saves he's made that no other goalkeeper in MLS will make.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had conversations in the past with goalkeeping coaches for the Nats. We've talked to Klinsmann about Hamid, and a lot of the criticisms of him in past years was kind of centered on his personality on the field, him being prone to making rash decisions, red cards, over emotional, whatever you want to say. All that's gone. He's literally basically eliminated that from his game in the past year or two. So I'm really not sure what more they're asking.
Well,
you think he really has to go to Europe at this point?
Well, I think the last couple of months, I think he's been a little error prone, don't you?
He had, like I mentioned, he had a couple mistakes.
The one free kick that he misjudged comes to mind.
Right, and then there was the one goal against the Red Bulls where he got beat to his near post. There been.
You're not talking about mistakes that any of the guys that got called into camp haven't made at some point somewhat recently.
Right.
So
yeah,
I mean, it baffles me, honestly. I think Hamid is a top 3 keeper for the national team.
Right
not
now.
just just young keepers. I'm talking about Howard, Guzan, Hamid.
Well, that position is really in flux. I think Ramonda's on his way out. Howard's had a little bit of a renaissance because he's playing well with Colorado, but Guzan is now not playing with Middlesbrough. So You wonder how long he can keep this sort of number one status he's had with the national team if he's not getting any minutes.
I think it's going to be Howard against Mexico and Columbus.
The way it's going, I would agree with you.
But
somebody call us, by the way, 708 LT OWFSS.
The thing with Hamid that fascinates
particularly
me
if
is
an MLS goalkeeper has hit on your girlfriend recently.
Anything like that.
The thing with Hamid that fascinates me is how Klinsmann is the guy who brought him into the picture. Back in 2011, when Klinsmann first took over, he called in Hamid for his first game in charge. That was Bill's first ever call-up. He had never gotten one under Bradley. And for a while, Hamid was number 2 on the depth chart behind
First game in
Howard. He
charge.
was ahead.
The one in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Hamid was on the roster for that?
Hamid was the backup to Tim Howard, and for a while, he was the number 2 ahead of Brad Guzan.
U.S. goal scored by Robbie Rogers in the first half.
Second half?
First half? And the first half, I thought.
He had an equalizer in the second half. It was like 79th minute or so off of Breck Shea assist.
I was but it's fine.
Yeah.
I still go with Thomas on this one.
Obviously, yes.
But then Klinsmann had the quotes back in June ahead of the Copa America, where
Yes.
he said he listed off Hamid as one of these young goalkeepers who hasn't made the type of progress that they expected out of him. And
I mean, to
that,
even
that
put
there's
him-
a bit of disappointment, and yet lumped him in with Sean
Sean
Johnson.
Johnson. I mean, come on.
Oh,
like
that's a
we've
low
seen
blow.
him.
That's a low blow.
I mean, I understand Sean plays for the Fire, and that's a huge handicap in and of itself. But you know, he's made some seriously awful saves this year, or non-saves.
Sean I mean, he lost his starting job to Matt Lampson for a long stretch
Yeah.
of this season, and when he's in the lineup, I think he's an average
Well, you can
MLS
also say,
goalkeeper,
you know, when Hamid played in 2013 with DC United, his quality still showed.
right.
He was saving. You know, that year would have been even worse if it wasn't for him. So
But these quotes from Klinsmann, I think this roster, unless Hamid is called in for the second game, in which case maybe we're making a big deal out of nothing, but this roster seems to be Klinsmann doubling down on that notion that Hamid is in his doghouse, that for whatever reason, is it just the injuries? Is it the sporadic errors? For some reason, Klinsmann thinks Hamid is not where he should be, and this roster seems like he's sending another message to Bill that he needs to raise his game to get back into the picture. Or, I mean, you never know with Klinsmann.
I think he's telling him to go to Europe.
That could be it.
I mean, maybe he's tired of hearing the chatter about Hamid going to Europe, and it's a shit or get off the pot thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, and we actually do have
DC United being the toilet, apparently. So
we have a question about Bill Hamid. If he has a great end of the season, can we expect Bob to make a bid later in the winter? So
Who's Swansea? Fabianski? He's Swansea's keeper.
Yeah,
Eh.
it'd probably take Fabianski over Hamid at this point.
Yeah.
But it's, I guess, not too far away.
quick mention: Dan Carell just chimed in with his Michael Seaton update.
Oh man.
Started in a 1-0 win for, was it Hapoel Ramat Gan?
Yes, the Israeli second division.
And they're in first place, the Israeli second division.
Promotion.
Ooh.
Yeah, oh, that happens there. Okay. Yeah.
I look forward to the Birnbaum marking Seaton battles we'll see next year in the Israeli top flight.
Dan, I appreciate the update, but I think we all agree that the Dan Carell Israeli update is best heard in an audio form.
Agreed. Just leave it on the voicemail next time. Keep it under 2 minutes this time, but try and maximize the number of Hebrew words in it, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, let's move on to general MLS.
Yeah.
I want to start out with the FC Dallas because they are just about 2/3 of the way to something that we have never seen in MLS, which is a treble: U.S. Open Cup, Supporter Shield, and MLS Cup. To clarify that, they almost have the Supporter Shield locked up after this last weekend. Pablo?
I want to suggest completely out of turn. I'm looking at this list of topics which we put together for the show, and I don't see Montreal on here, and I'd like to talk about Montreal at some point because they are really, really shitting the bed.
They've won two straight games.
2 games in a row.
Yeah, but they're still shitting the bed. You know, dude, Philadelphia might miss the
Dominic
playoffs.
Oduro's on fire.
Philadelphia
is also about to miss the playoffs. They're 1 point above the red line.
Dude, when they sent out that Instagram post in
Go
May,
ahead, doubt us.
you knew karma was going to get them for that.
I thought, if you're listening, whoever, I tweeted the other day, I can't believe Philadelphia's going to miss the playoffs. And who I assumed was because I didn't put it together right away, was a Philly superfan just being a blowhard, responded, "Go ahead, doubt them." Only later did I put together that it was a sly reference to their fucking Instagram. So good job with that.
I double checked this. They are 3 points above the red line.
Philly?
Not quite as dire.
Was that affected by the result last night?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, they're 3 points ahead of New England.
It's pretty much between them and New England for the last
well, either way,
spot.
this is a team that I thought had a decent shot at winning the division.
It's funny how the MLS playoffs work because
everyone gets in.
Well, the thing is, we really should judge success or just having a somewhat acceptable season by making the conference semifinals. Because if you make the playoffs, then you just have a road game in the wild card round. You lose without even getting to play a single postseason game in front of your home fans, is that really a playoff run?
We call-
your
we call-
playoff
Thomas,
run
I need you
lasts
to
3 days.
I need you to stick to this league-approved list of talking points, please, because you're veering a little far off.
Especially-
I'm completely with you. Although in the NFL, if you make the wild card game, I mean, are you considered
Right.
that made the playoffs?
It's hard to
But
make
in the
the playoffs
NFL,
in
12
NFL.
out of the 32 teams make the playoffs.
Yeah.
In MLS, it's 12 out
completely
of
fair
20.
statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course the sixth seed up until last season did not even make the playoffs.
It is nice how in NWSL less than half the league makes the playoffs, right? It's 4 out of 10 teams. I mean,
Well, starting next year in MLS, it will be 12 out 22.
still more
We're
than
like-
half.
we're
Still more than half.
Getting closer.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you so I brought that up because the Union, who have had this, what's been regarded as a renaissance season for them, or breakthrough season is probably more apt. They're on the verge of just being in that 5 or 6 slot, going on the road for a knockout game, and then we've seen how teams do when you're on the road in the knockout round, you generally lose, and then their entire postseason run that this 9-month season has built up to will only last 3 days, and then they're back into another long off season, not playing soccer in November, and that really makes you wonder about did we rush to judge this team and hail them as being this reclamation project under Ernie Stewart? Maybe we will really see it next year once they've had a full season with the new leadership intact. But yeah, it's been a little disappointing to see them fall off and not be the team, the MLS Cup contender that maybe we thought we'd be seeing back in the summer.
I remember on this very show, we were lauding them for their mid-season moves, particularly getting Bedoya in after they lost Noguera.
I'm
And
almost
Charlie
positive
Davies
I'm
seemed
almost
like a
positive I
good
said they would
signing.
win the East. You know what I mean? I really thought they would.
When they made those 2 signings, Bedoya and Davies, I thought, all right, this is a team that was on the cusp of being an MLS Cup contender, and then they made the exact 2 moves they needed, combined with Maurice Adu coming back from injury. Those 3 additions filled all the gaps, and it reminded me of the Crew last year, who got Will Trapp back from injury, signed Gaston Sarro, signed Harrison Offal, traded for Jack McInerney, and filled the gaps in their team, and then made it to MLS Cup. I thought for sure that was going to be the Union, and it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, I think a really disappointing development for the Union is that CJ Sapong has kind of stopped scoring goals, and at the beginning of the season it looked like he was really making another step forward to the point where he was going to be one of the MLS's top scorers. He's going to be in the national team picture, and in the latter half of the season, for whatever reason, just hasn't happened for him.
I remember seeing a discussion, I forget where it was, Twitter, Reddit, somewhere, about strikers to bring to the Copa America, and there were people making passionate cases for CJ Sapong and Quincy Amarikwa, and that's kind of a cautionary tale for jumping to conclusions about players after 2 months of the MLS season. And that said, Sapong, I mean, he still has made great strides, and if you watch Union games, he's doing a lot of the work off the ball that's still very important, providing an outlet and laying the ball off and connecting with his teammates, but the finished product just hasn't been there in these last couple months.
So back to Dallas, which we haven't really talked about yet. Because
Sorry about that.
Pablo wanted to talk about Montreal,
Which we
who
didn't
is-
do.
And that took us
who
to the
is
Union.
crashing and
Right.
burning with 2 straight wins.
Oh, come on. Seriously? 2 straight wins to... All right, whatever. It's fine.
DC United hadn't done that all year.
Yeah, that's true.
So FC Dallas,
I'm going to turn this mixer off right now.
I mean, the playoffs is always the last and most difficult aspect of the treble because you never know what's going to happen. It's a crapshoot. It's MLS.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Sounders almost did a couple years ago and crashed out of the playoffs.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But it seems like they have clearly as good of a chance as anybody in recent memory, and heading into the playoffs, you have to say they're the favorite, even though they obviously lost a big piece in Castillo a couple months ago.
The Castillo thing is strange to me because I look at their team and I see that they're about to win the Shield, and top to bottom, it's such a talented team. You look at the center back pairing of Hedges and Zimmerman has, I think, been the best in MLS this year. Mauro Diaz has been fantastic. The holding midfielders, Acosta and Grazo are, that's maybe the best holding midfield duo you have in MLS. And I still just look at that hole on the right flank where Fabian Castillo used to be and see the guys they're plugging in: Mauro Rosales, Tesho Akindele, Gederson, whoever that is.
I think they signed him from like the Brazilian 8th division or something like that. That's not even an exaggeration. It's a slight exaggeration.
Following in the proud footsteps of other Brazilians to play for FC Dallas, like Danielson. Let's see what we got here. Oh, and he hung up. All right, never mind.
All right. I look at that right flank in Dallas's lineup, and it still stops me and makes me think, can this team win MLS Cup with that big a hole on their roster? The fact that they didn't go out and find any sort of replacement. I know there was talk of them maybe finding a free agent out there who could step in and maybe wouldn't be Castillo, but would at least give them something. But the guys they've had stepping in just are such a drop-off from Castillo. And the thing is, maybe if they hadn't had Castillo all season, I wouldn't be thinking this way. But
yeah, I mean, they're so strong everywhere else.
Yeah.
Like, why are you, I mean, I understand you're fixated with that void he left, but they're still an incredibly talented soccer team.
And I'm just saying, I still think they'll go deep in the playoffs, but when you come down to these conference finals that are so tightly contested, having a Castillo, not having a Castillo can be the difference when you're going up against the Galaxy or you're going up against a surprisingly stingy Rapids team.
Tell me who is more well equipped in MLS to make a deep run in the playoffs than Dallas.
If the Galaxy get things together.
Let's try this again. Yeah. All right, 808, you're on Open Wide for some soccer. How can we help you?
Hey, this is Don from Hawaii.
Hey, Hawaii. Wow.
Hey, I got a question. As a cynical long-term DC United fan, should I be freaked out that this team can no longer hold a clean sheet, or should I be excited about the fact that they can actually score some goals?
Excited that they can score some goals.
Yeah, just enjoy the good, attractive soccer while it lasts, man.
Okay, and if I can follow up?
Yeah, of course.
With Ladero going to Seattle, and again, my cynical take on this team's incredible cheapness, are we actually going to be able to keep Acosta?
Well, first of all, that's not cynical. That's just firmly grounded in reality. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm not sure. I think obviously he's kind of starting to light things up now, which is going to drive his market value up. But all indications are that they're already kind of initiated talks and are at the bargaining table. So we're certainly interested in keeping him.
And just speaking based off what Toier has said in the past, he talked a lot about how he's willing to spend the money for the right players, and then particularly many people in the organization have talked about how once they get into the new stadium that they will kind of loosen things up and be more willing to spend. And I think Acosta, when you're 1 year out from the stadium and it's a 22, 23-year-old player, I think you spend,
lock him down.
Lock him down so you have that star already on the team, kind of building him up as a player going into the new stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would like to think at least, and this is just sort of speculative, that DC United understands his value in relation to the consumability of their product. That it's they're actually playing kind of joyful, entertaining soccer, and that's going to get more people back out to RFK or Buzzard Point or whatever, but. I guess anything could happen with DC United.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Pablo. I feel like almost at this point it has to be done almost as a gesture of goodwill towards the fans who've dealt with several years of not spending a lot of money and playing games in RFK Stadium as it crumbles around them.
Connor Doyle's, the Leonard Pahoy's, Leonard, I'm sorry if you're listening.
The non-goal scoring forwards.
Exactly. The defensive work rate attacking players, So I don't know.
As a long-term United fan, I've come to appreciate the non-goal scoring forward.
Of course you have. It's called Stockholm Syndrome, man. Don't worry about it.
No, they work hard defensively.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Anyways, man, we appreciate the call.
Thanks so much.
Sure. Yeah. Where are we at?
We're talking about who could challenge Dallas, and I think you look at the Galaxy top to bottom. I mean, on paper, that's an incredible team. Especially, have you guys watched Donovan's appearances off the bench? Like, he looks good. Like, he is creating a lot of scoring chances, and I think you give him another month, and he's going to be, back to at least, a guy who can start and give you like 70 good minutes.
I paid $60 for FIFA 17, and Landon Donovan's not in the game.
All right.
Have you noticed this?
I have
the latest roster update.
Exactly.
He's not on the Galaxy, but there are players who joined after him.
Exactly. Carlos Ruiz is on Dallas, but Donovan's not on the Galaxy.
Yeah, what gives?
What?
Like,
why is that?
I don't know. My theory is that FIFA is having like a panic attack trying to figure out what rating they should give him. Like, do you give vintage?
like a 52.
Well, yeah, like should it be like a 52? Should it be like an 80 where
No,
he
I
left
think-
off?
I think you just have to take all of his ratings from the most recent time he was on the game and just put his fitness at like 10.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like add like 30 pounds to his player.
It is pretty remarkable, Thomas, how well he's played in his cameos, considering this is a guy who is very open about the fact that he's not in any kind of soccer playing shape.
Yeah, but he's a total like whippet. You know what I mean? He's not like he's one of those guys who just is like skinny and in shape. And I understand what you're saying, but like there's only so out of shape he's gonna get. Like,
well, it was more like
he's not like Carlos Ruiz type, where it's like he's been hitting the DC Slices truck behind the north goal, and like that's not what it is. Like
right. I guess I'm going by his appearance on the Dan Patrick show a couple weeks ago after they played in Kansas City, and he was like, I played 5 minutes in that game.
That was the worst.
And like the final whistle, I was like dying.
Yeah, he said he came in with fresh legs, and there were people still like faster than him on the field.
The funny thing is, I was genuinely surprised when he said, "Yeah, this is something I hadn't even thought of until like a week and a half ago." When he announced it. Like usually when people come out of retirement, it's like a simmering thing. I'm remembering being from DC when Michael Jordan was rumored to come out of retirement to sign with the Wizards. It was like in the papers for months, like people talking about like, oh, he's getting the itch.
People keep making that. I've heard that comparison multiple times. Jordan scored like 55 points or something some game with the Wizards.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they're still totally capable of just eviscerating a team, and I think Donovan has the same ability.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Jordan was keeping himself in shape, was clearly gearing up for it, and then announced, all right, I'm coming out of retirement. Donovan was like, all right, I'm going to come out of retirement. Haven't kicked a soccer ball in 2 years, and I'm completely out of shape, but we'll take it from there.
Yeah, he made it seem like he had no plans to do so until the Galaxy lost a couple of players through injury and then losing Nigel de Jong to transfer.
Yeah.
And then at that point,
it just steps into the phone booth and emerges with the Galaxy kit on.
Yeah, like it was just suggested to him.
Got a question here in the YouTube feed. And I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, but it's tricky because the competition's obviously split into 2 years. A CCL title, shouldn't that be part of the true treble, I guess?
I think
that would be the quadruple.
Right. Yeah, I think.
And Dallas could do that if you're counting next year's CCL. They're still alive.
I think the reason CCL doesn't come up in that conversation is A,
they've never
MLS
won.
Just doesn't win it.
Exactly.
And B, there is, I guess, some confusion over what year would qualify. I assume it would need to be, you would have to win in the spring of the year that you then win the Open Cup. And for that to be a real quadruple.
We just really need this for marketing purposes, so don't fuck this up.
Yeah, to me, you go through an entire off season, you can have a very different team from the team that you had the previous season, and it seems a little bit of a stretch to consider it a treble when you're talking about a single season achievement.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, speaking about teams that might be at least becoming equipped to make a long run in the playoffs. What the hell is going on with Seattle, man? It's just mind-boggling.
Is that another team that could beat Dallas?
I mean, I'm of the opinion that any MLS team can beat any just like a total crapshoot, except for Chicago. But
do you know what my feeling with Seattle is? It's actually very similar to Dallas. I look at them like, man, they're on a roll. They're doing some great
No
things.
Dempsey.
No Dempsey.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be brutal in the playoffs.
Yeah, but they picked up Ladero, man. I understand
Yeah.
it's positionally different, but I mean...
Right. Well, I mean,
You
Ladero
could make
has
an argument
shifted
that-
inside, is now filling in for Dempsey.
Yeah, and you
so,
could also make,
yeah.
but you can make the argument that he's had more of an influence on the game than Clint was having.
Yeah, but
I mean-
then there were those golden games that when they did play together, and like if that was the team that was going into the postseason, I would be ready to say like, all right, like Sounders, like dark horse favorites.
I still have questions too about Morris's his finishing ability, especially in like big pressure-filled situations. You know, I mean, I understand the guy has 12 goals. Was it 12, 13 now, something like that?
12, yeah.
Rookie record, etc. But I've also seen him miss a lot of sitters throughout the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just make pointless runs or dribble the ball out of bounds, or he's just so raw.
He's been getting
you know?
better though as the season.
He has. I'm just saying, I don't
progressed.
think he's at a point yet where, you know, you can look at that guy heading into the playoffs and be like, this is a guy who could really
Well, the thing
damage, you know, a bunch of teams.
The thing about Seattle is everybody talks about the addition of Lodero, and clearly that's been really important for them. But another addition they had around the same time, which has been equally as important, is Roman Torres. And, of course, he was already on the team, but he hadn't played all season. And I feel like getting him into that back line with Chad Marshall makes all the difference for them. They had a rotating cast of characters next to Marshall at center back, and none of them were really working out. And now they have Roman Torres back there with Marshall, and all of a sudden they look like a decent back line again.
Here's a question. Let's assume Seattle makes the playoffs. They look like they're going to make the playoffs. Do they keep Schmetzer? I mean, they have to, right? I was just talking about this with Charlie, though. I do think they'll like hang him out for a while. I mean, you're talking about an MLS team that could realistically get almost any coach they want.
I was gonna say,
I
I
think
guess
they'll-
it wouldn't shock me if they reached out for a Tata Martino
Exactly.
type.
Yeah, that's I think what they're
But
going to do.
barring
yeah.
that, you know, I don't think they're going to say, "Hey, we're going to pluck Peter Vermes from Kansas City." You know, we're not going to have an NYCFC Jason Kreis, you know, stealing him from RSL situation. I think that they will stick with Schmetzer before, you know, any in MLS candidate.
It's just so underwhelming to like declare your ambition with the guy who is your assistant coach halfway through. I understand he's been around forever.
If they keep winning,
I get
they
it.
don't have
I
a
get it.
choice.
I'm just, but you know how fans work. You know what I mean?
I-
you know how your
I-
customers work. Like,
Yeah, I do think that Schmetzer might be on a shorter leash than maybe a different coach.
And then sometimes a guy just needs an opportunity. Like, you know, Bob Bradley was Bruce Arena's assistant at DC United. You know, give him an opportunity, and now he's in the Premier League 20 years later.
Another question on the stream. What
yeah.
what would you say Costa's chances are for newcomer of the year? I'd say they're pretty good.
I have to think.
Who else?
Ladero.
Yeah.
It's always hard to judge the mid-season ones because, like, do you count that against them? Do you say
Frank Lampard.
I don't think that.
Kind of a newcomer.
Well, we still don't know when his contract actually began. So,
Right.
anyways, I like Seattle's chances. Obviously, I mean, you tend to like any team who's rounding to form at the right time. Their chances in the playoffs. DC United, Seattle, all these teams. You know.
Yeah. You almost wonder. MLS is so fickle. Any team that we're talking about right now, is it possible they're peaking too early, that you can come out of the international break in 2 weeks and, you know, go into the playoffs having lost that momentum? That, you know, the team that will be peaking at the right time is the team that is not yet there.
Do either of you guys watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I do, but I only watched the first
Anytime
5 or
somebody
6
talks
seasons.
about
Yeah.
peaking, all I can think about is the Dennis Reynolds peaking monologue.
What season
Seth,
is
are you
that?
okay? It's do you know what I'm talking about, Seth?
No, I've only seen a few episodes of that show.
All right, never mind.
Apologize. So with our last 10 minutes, you want to get into the Bob Bradley situation?
Sure.
Yeah. Let's do it. Bob Bradley finally achieves his goal, becomes a manager in a top 5 European league, the first American to do so. He almost...
Thank you. For Bob Bradley.
Yeah, he was actually really close to achieving that last season with Le Havre of the French second division.
I think it's Le Havre, isn't it?
I guess, is it pronounced like Brett Favre?
Yeah.
Le Havre.
Yeah.
Almost got them promoted to Ligue 1 this year.
He also was dangerously close to seeing someone beat him to the punch. David Wagner.
Yeah.
In the championship in England, right? With
yes, Huddersfield.
Huddersfield.
Yes, I believe they're still in first place in the championship.
Yeah, we could have 2 Americans in the Premier League next year.
Yeah, so, I think that the first place you have to start with Bob Bradley is this dual-sided coin of him being American. I think for a lot of his career in Europe, you could argue that being American has hurt him and prevented him from getting better jobs. The other side of that is Swansea is owned by a group of Americans now, including DC United co-owner Jason Levine, including Landon Donovan. And you can say, does Bob Bradley get that job if he's not American? Maybe not.
He does not.
Is it weird the idea of just Jason Levine like in an interview room at an EPL team?
He was.
I read Paul Kennedy's article today where it said that Levine in particular was really impressed with Bradley in the interview.
I'm going to assume you didn't watch Swansea's game on Saturday, but they kept cutting to him and his other American investor repeatedly throughout the game. Like he got more.
He's getting that kind of play now.
Jason Levine got more airtime in that broadcast than like Philip Coutinho did.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah,
Also, no, I didn't watch the Swansea game this past weekend.
They were playing Liverpool.
All right.
It was an early game.
Yeah.
The thing is, I agree that Bradley has been shortchanged to a degree because there's probably this perception in Europe that Americans don't have much of a track record of being successful as coaches there. So
they have no track record in any way, shape, or form.
Greg Berhalter coached the team over there for a year or two, right?
Ernie Stewart.
Greg Berhalter coached
sort of
in a team in the Swedish
yeah,
first or maybe even second division.
Yeah. So
I mean, the fact that we're reaching already, that the first name we're like Greg Berhalter, where did he coach? I mean, I think we're pretty on point here.
And I do think it's funny if Bradley had gotten this job right after, say, the 2010 World Cup, I feel like it would have raised fewer eyebrows. It would have been like, that's kind of a bold, risky hire, but he did good things in the World Cup. But now that he's spent these years, working his way through the ranks in Europe, clearly trying to build toward a top 5 league job, and it feels like he kind of skipped a step.
I agree. That is the strangest part of it, because for those people who are saying that he doesn't have a track record that warrants being a Premier League coach, I disagree with that. When you bring the U.S. to a World Cup, get them through the group stage, go into Egypt, have that experience, get them close to a World Cup.
Only lose your playoff 9-0.
Yeah. But, he did a really good job in Norway with Stabæk. But, yes, it seemed like this job in France was sort of the stepping stone to get to a job like he has now. But he has only been in France for, the end of last season, and now it's been 4 or 5 games this season. It does seem like this was the job that he would have gotten if he got Le Havre promoted.
I do also think, though, it's just going to be viewed by Swansea's fans, who apparently aren't all thrilled about this move, as some sort of nationalism or nepotism, whatever you want to say. And I think the byproduct of that is that Bradley's definitely going to have a shorter leash than maybe a different coach they would have brought in.
Yeah,
I think they know that that's their legacy, and their perception is important of this hire, and that they probably won't hesitate to get rid of him. If it means that they, what I mean.
And earlier today at work, Seth and I were talking about how this will be considered like an indictment on American coaches if he fails.
Completely.
And if he succeeds, look to see Chelsea hire Dom Kinnear next summer.
Oh my God!
Well,
I think they get any more unwatchable.
It's true, Thomas. I think that a lot of American coaches' futures are going to be riding on Bradley's success, but it's also kind of silly because Swansea right now, they're not very good. They just fired Guidolin, who is an Italian coach, and I'm pretty sure that more Italian coaches in the future will be hired they'll be hired whether Guidolin had success with this group of players at Swansea or not. So it is just an individual situation, but unfortunately, because there is no track record, I think whatever Bob does in this position is going to determine the future for a lot of American coaches.
It works both ways. Look at MLS. I mean, I think probably now that Vieira is having some sort of success in his first year, you see now, I mean, they were obviously anybody would be crazy not to hire Martino, but you might see more foreign coaches come in. I think there was obviously after the whole Ruud Gullit situation,
right?
There was a lull there where they just weren't bringing in any foreign managers, because they don't know the game over here, X, Y, Z. And I think, maybe if Gullit had done better, that wouldn't have been the case.
But Patrick Vieira keeps playing Jason Hernandez.
Dude, I mean, that team is the weirdest thing ever to me. It's like the players on that team can go from starting to not even being in the 18 and back in like 3 games, so maybe it's some sort of black magic thing that he's doing where it's like he's cast a spell on these guys and they're constantly on their toes and whatever it is, it's working.
It does seem, going back to Bradley, like Swansea might be a good situation for him because he seems to thrive when dealing with teams that aren't quite as good as their opponents and kind of buckling down and playing, a little bit more of a defensive type style. And certainly at this point in their season, it's still early, but I feel like for Swansea, if they're finishing comfortably out of relegation danger, that would be a successful season and it would earn him another chance next year.
Yeah.
And I think that certainly Bob can achieve that.
All right, now we need...
At minimum, there's a low bar, right? So hopefully he can make it happen.
All right, so can we theorize which U.S. national team players he'll sign? Will he sign his son?
So we're right back. Speaking of nepotism, are we really
going to really double down on it?
Exactly. We're going to come full circle back to, well, he's only playing because of his dad.
Oh, God.
10 years later, we're going to come back to that, right? Like, I don't know.
Does Swansea need a left back? Because Jonathan Bornstein's playing pretty well in Mexico.
I thought you were just going to say, because Michael Bradley could probably play left back.
Well, that too.
He wants to pull a Klinsmann or something like that.
Landon Donovan, player owner.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Bill Hamid was suggested earlier.
Yeah.
Swansea ties. Which DC United play? What is it? It's only Bill Hamid that it could be. Never mind.
Birnbaum.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Taylor Kemp.
Oh.
I made an argument to you in the press box, which I'm going to stand by. I'm not going to get sidetracked too much here, but I think if Taylor Kemp played on a big market team, particularly, say, Seattle, Portland, L.A., there'd be chatter about him being a national team prospect at that position. And I think there'd at least be chatter about him being best 11, one of the premier defenders in the league.
Just looking at the cold hard stats, he leads all left backs in MLS in assists this season. So
it doesn't sound impressive, but by a long shot, you know what I mean? Like
I think in an attacking sense, Taylor Kemp.
He scored like 3 goals too, right?
I think
it won.
Never mind that.
In terms of crossing the ball and going forward, I think that he could be in with a shot for the national team. I'm still not completely convinced that he's a good enough defender to play at the international level.
He's getting there.
He's certainly getting better.
Yeah,
I think he's getting on the verge of January call-up territory. Which now, to be fair, left backs who have been called up in January in recent years: Connor Lade, Michael Harrington, Chris Clutie.
But I mean, we haven't even you're literally saying that on this show, but like literally nobody else has even said that. That he, you know what I mean? Like it's a.
I'm just
I understand
saying
you're doing your best to start the
I'm
buzz
going to start
here
the buzz.
on air.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say also about Kemp is that it wasn't that long ago that the idea of Taylor Kemp getting in a game for DC United was just terrifying, and he seems to have really made a rapid improvement
Thomas,
in the last year.
You had a conversation with him about like lack of recognition, right?
Yeah, it was funny because I asked him a question about being just not having much buzz around him as a player. He's not in the advertising or the marketing and that type of thing.
Not any bus shelters here in DC yet.
And I really expected his straight up answer to just be like, "Yeah, I'm used to that," And he was kind of like, "That used to really make me angry," but
That used to.
but like
Yeah.
he was like,
doesn't it even more now that you're actually good?
he was like, but now it doesn't matter. I'm all for the team. As long as the coaches and teammates are satisfied with my performances, I'm happy. That's all that matters.
When
But-
was this used to period? Was it when he was playing like one game a season?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it used to bother me when I was actually not good. Now it doesn't bother me anymore that I'm good. Like, I don't know. Is that it? Are we done?
I think that'll do it.
Oh God. So we'll be back in early January then.
Yeah,
Yes.
sounds good.
Our MLS
Live
draft
from the-
preview.
Yeah, live from the MLS draft.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.